Hey, what's up? Zach here, and today I have one of the most requested videos in my comment section, and it is not even a sneaker. It is the Move Game Day Pro insoles. Now, the Game Day Pro insoles were designed by a whole team of professionals. However, the most famous one, of course, is Damian Lillard, and it's advertised that the Move Game Day Pros are meant for more of the athletic type. These are not just a generic over-the-counter insert. They are meant more for the athlete, especially the elite athlete. But are these any better than just the regular generic over-the-counter insoles that you can get and the ones that a lot of us prescribe in our offices? Let's find out. So the one thing I noticed when putting these orthotics in my shoe for the first time, just kind of first initial impressions, is that the arch does feel a little bit more broad than some standard over-the-counter orthotics, even the Power Step. And that's actually a really good thing because it's capturing more of your arch from right where the heel meets the junction of your midfoot to where the midfoot meets the junction of your forefoot. And on some over-the-counters, the arch is actually just really sharp just because they're trying to get the arch in there and trying to make the mold as cheap as possible. Whereas these, it actually goes a little bit longer, so you're getting more cradling under there, which is something that is definitely missing in the over-the-counter insert space. And the other thing that seems like a gimmick when it's advertised is that these orthotics are made for individual foot sizes like 11 or 11 and a half, whereas most of them are small, medium, or large. However, I cannot tell you how much better it is to not have to cut these down, you put them in your shoes, or try to stuff them in a shoe that doesn't really fit them, and when your toes is touching the shoe. You really didn't get these in them. This was an 11, 11 and a half. I put it in a pair of 11 and a half GT jumps, and it fit perfectly the first time. And so to test out any new footwear, sneaker technology, you know the old adage, run faster, jump higher. So number one, I wanted to see if these would actually make me run faster. So what I did was I set up 4 suicide tests 4 days apart, and 2 of them with just standard shoe, Nike GT Jump was my control shoe, and then 2 days in the Nike Game Day Pros in the Nike GT Jump. Now on the 2 days I did the suicide test in the standard Nike GT Jump, I got an average of 14.90 seconds. Now on the 2 days I put the Game Day Pros in there, my average was 14.74 seconds, which if you know this channel is a pretty significant increase in speed. Now that speed came from pretty much one area, and that was straightaway speed. And the reason for that is that number one, the Game Day Pros do have a little bit of a stiffer shell underneath of them. And so a lot of over-the-counter inserts, they're pretty flimsy. You can just kind of bend them all over the place. And so they don't give any mechanical advantage to the muscles underneath your foot. You actually need a pretty stiff shell to do that. And so it was giving the muscles on the bottom of my foot a lot more mechanical advantage and allowing me to move as one unit. So I definitely think the speed in these came from the straightaways, not so much the corners or turns. And the next test in the speed category was average heart rate when running, because if an orthotic is supposed to give you a more efficient stride and decrease the workload on your body and give you a little more efficient footwork, then naturally it should decrease your heart rate because it's decreasing the workload on your body. Now what I normally do for this is 15 minutes in my normal mile pace, standard shoe, and then shoe with the insert. Now in my regular New Balance 840s, my average heart rate was 140 beats per minute. Now with the Game Day Pro, that average went down to 136 beats per minute. Now that was slightly less of a decrease in heart rate than I got from the Power Step Pinnacles. However, it was pretty negligible. All right, so getting into vertical, can these actually make you jump higher? Well, yes and no. So it really depends on the shoe. Now I started doing this with the Nike GT Jump, which was probably a mistake because the GT Jump is pretty heavy and bulky and it's got its own thing going on there. So in terms of jump height, I really got no difference in jump height with the Game Day Pros versus the GT Jump. It was 37.5 centimeters, and that was pretty standard across the board. Now when I put these in a little bit of a lower profile shoe like the Nike Court Zoom Next, that jump height went from 32 centimeters up to 33.5 centimeters on average. So it really depends. The lighter and more low profile a shoe, the less the shoe's got going on, the more the insert you put into it is going to help you. Now there are a lot of over-the-counter inserts that do not help jump height at all. It definitely comes down to the same thing in terms of speed and in terms of heart rate. It comes down to how stiff that shell is and how much it contours your arch. Now remember, the Game Day Pros are what's considered an over-the-counter orthotic, but if you're actually looking to get a full custom orthotic molded, now I do have an orthotic checklist, cheat sheet, and just my favorite builds for certain athletes. I do have that available as a pinned comment down below for download, as well as in the description of this video for download. So the question is, why did these make me run faster in the GT Jump, but not make me jump higher? So it's number one, because an orthotic works best when you're giving it a lot of kinetic energy. That's true for pretty much any decently made pair of orthotics. The more you give to it, the more it's going to give back to you. So it's basically the more time you give the orthotic to work, the more it will, versus when you're just standing and jumping. The orthotic just can't do a lot for you when it's contained in a big shoe like that, versus when you're going a distance, the orthotic does start to kick in and it does start to decrease the workload on those muscles and giving you a much more mechanically efficient stride, which then decreases your heart rate and decreases your time. But on the opposite end of the spectrum from the forefoot, if you go into the heel, this is one of my favorite parts of these as a foot doctor, is because if you look back going into the heel, it still stays pretty squared off, which is going to give them a lot more of a locked-in fit on your shoe. A lot of over-the-counter orthotics or even customs are really rounded off in the heel, and these are too. But as you get into the top part of them, they're squared, and that's just going to keep them really secure in the heel cup and not give you a lot of this rocking back and forth, which also increases the efficiency in the orthotic. It's a really small design tweak, but something that can make a huge difference in terms of the stability, or at least your perceived stability of your foot in the orthotic. And so I think in terms of price and performance, the Game Day Pros are actually a really decent pickup, which is a really pleasant surprise to me because I'm always looking for new brands to be able to recommend to my patients. And a lot of times I get reps from companies that are sending me orthotics that are just claiming to be the latest and greatest, and they've got this and that magic powder in them. And they usually all start to disappoint me, except for Power Step, which is my favorite, and some Super Feet, which is my wife's favorite. She's also a foot doctor. However, just the little design tweaks in them that you can tell a professional athlete had some input in these really make these a nice recommendation for me for a lot of my athlete patients, and I am really excited to put some people in these and see how they do. And yeah, of course, there are a few tweaks here or there that can be made to make these an even better build. However, just on their own, these are still really competitive with just about every other over-the-counter orthotic that I've been recommending to my patients. Now, the one thing I'll say I don't love about the Game Days is the padding under the heel. Now, I know this makes the orthotic a lot more comfortable and easy to break in, and if you have existing heel pain, a lot of times it's a little bit easier to accept this padding. However, when you make this padding, you actually have to cut the shell, and it makes that shell less resistant to force, and it makes it less durable over time because it's just one more point of failure. Otherwise, if you're only using these for 3 months at a time, you're getting new ones, it's probably not going to be a big deal for you. And just me being a foot doctor, kind of studying orthotics a lot, this is the one point of failure I see on a lot of orthotics with this type of design. But of course, I'd love to know your thoughts on the Game Day Pros. Have you used them? Do you like them, especially in comparison to some other over-the-counter orthotics you may have been using, or even some customs? Let me know in the comments down below. And as I've alluded to before, these aren't the only over-the-counter orthotics out there available, so if you want to see my review on the Victory Carbon Fiber and Power Step Pinnacle, make sure you click into the video up above and subscribe down below. Respect rubber and foam and polypropylene, I guess. See you in the next video.